Welcome to the Late Game Podcast, a podcast about all things board gaming, from rolling dice to painting minis and everything in between. I'm your host Tyler, and with me is Kenneth.
What up?
And Russ.
How are you?
So this week, we had a pretty productive week for gaming. As far as the late game goes, we all managed to get together for a D&D session. How did that go for everyone?
It was rad.
I
really
enjoyed
it. Yeah, I dug it.
I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I was worried by the end of the night if you enjoyed it or not.
Well, I mean, me and Ashley enjoyed it enough that yesterday I clicked the actual button to order our own custom guys off of Hero Forge.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, I've got a lot of wheels turning for the next, because I've learned a lot more. I told you guys, didn't know how long to plan. So I think in my mind I had planned for like an hour to 2 hours. I think in reality we probably planned for like a half hour. We played for 4 hours or more.
Yeah.
But I figured, because I know how my brain works and stuff, I laid out a plan, and actually like putting it in under pressure kind of helped guide direction.
There's two things, I hope, constructive criticisms that I would make, especially after talking to Ashley a bit. One, and this is more for like what you planned versus what we did to kind of help you. You can take some more time with us on the road. There can be more than one thing that happens between cities.
Yeah.
And I mean, once you get in the flow and once you know more about like what kind of creatures and what level we're at and what kind of random shit to throw at us, you can throw more random shit between the cities.
I mean, as an example, bears and kobolds, I had not even planned on being in the world yet.
But that's one area. And especially if you're like, well, we've gone way past what I was planning on. Time to throw something else at them. And you also with that, you never know. I mean, if you, if we're on the road and you're essentially like not quite sure where we're going, you can be like, all right, I'm going to throw a bear at you. And there's a bear. And then you can be like, I still haven't quite decided. I'm going to throw another bear at you while you're on your way. Then all of a sudden we're going, what's with all these bears, man? Maybe there's a side quest where we hunt down like the king of the bears or some crazy shit like that. And that's where it can really like start spiraling. And that's the thing of like, that's the improvisation versus like, as a meta gamer and as the understanding that I have of D&D and the overall system, we played on rails in a lot of ways. I know that we threw you some curveballs for sure, but like I could see the rails to a certain degree, and I was expecting it, especially from a first time DM, especially the very, very first thing at all. You actually, I would say, did a better job of hiding the rails than I expected you to, but I expected it to be on the rails.
Well, I was hoping, two things for me as a DM. I was thinking there was going to be more combat. You guys didn't really engage in some of the things that I thought you would.
We didn't bite on every hook that you threw in front of us.
And two, I was worried about it being boring. That's why I was kind of like, you run into a group of kobolds and I was trying to spice it up.
Yeah, no, it was very good. The other like I said, constructive, I would hope, criticism is you had us rolling for everything that we did.
Yeah.
Which is totally doable. But in my mind, I see the roll of the dice is the way that you simulate the like when there's something that's unpredictable.
Right.
So basically, if everyone in the room is already dead, there's no need to roll for a search action. You could just roll for loot, because the idea would be we could spend as much time as we want to continue looting until we get it right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the body doesn't, you don't pick everything out of the pockets and then the body disappears. You could keep rifling so you roll once for the loot and you go, all right, you found, 4 gold pieces and a dagger. that's just what was there. You don't need to roll the D20 for it.
Yeah,
and other things like that.
Doing that based on what I thought you'd find.
And then like similar thing with conversation. I mean, there's when I'm being confrontational and there's like that intimidation check. Absolutely. If we're just having a casual chat, hey, how are you? What's going on? No need to roll. Generally.
Right, and that's where I've got to figure out, and I'm still trying to figure.
And
this out timeline wise. Like, I don't know if I gave you guys enough of some stuff, so I kind of got to judge that timeline off of that.
Yeah, and all of that shit, like, you will find your groove for sure as a DM, and that'll be like you'll get to where it's your game, the way that you run it, and if that means that there is more like the checks and rolling for like different things in things like conversations, once you smooth that out and you get that flow in your head to where it clicks better, it'll feel better for the players too, even if we are rolling for every third word that we want to say, and that's just time. I mean, it was a blast though. I'm super happy to be role playing again.
And I was up to keep playing, but honestly by like hour 4, I was just kind of spent.
You seemed like it. That's why I think I was the one that went, all right, this seems like a good place to stop, right?
And I was still enjoying it, but I was like, oh man,
it's stressful.
I mean, it was like a pop quiz, but 4-hour pop quiz.
Well, I mean, as an example,
just kept going,
and really, it came down to I had built a world, so I felt very confident in what I was doing or what I had. Like, I mean, not to spoil anything, but the darts or the daggers, that was not part of the story. Now it's like an integral part.
Yeah.
But I figured that kind of stuff would come to my brain in the moment more so than like, because I had notes and I had written out tons of stuff, but I figured I'd let it kind of flow as we got going.
See, my experience as a DM, there was once that I tried kind of freestyling my own world. We literally played one game, and I want to say that everyone else was like, yeah, it was fine. And I was like, I hated that, and I don't want to do it again. And then I just, like, the wife and kids really wanted to play D&D, so I was like, all right, I will just go with one of the books, one of the adventure books, and we're just going to do it essentially the way it's written in there. I might throw my own little twists in there. I didn't deviate from it a whole lot, and it worked. But even with those books, like, you really gotta kind of put your own twist on it to make it more compelling and stuff. And so, as a first-time DM, not going with any established storyline and not using the help and like the kid gloves that you could have in that way, I was very impressed with the way that you handled everything. And
well, I hadn't played D&D as a player yet either. So.
Like there's a whole bunch of like factors that like add up to, was it the smoothest D&D game I ever played? Absolutely not. Was it the worst? Far from it. So like the fact that it wasn't the worst is kind of amazing. So where you didn't use like an established storyline, you didn't like, there's a lot you've never played as a player. You studied books and you watched a ton of Critical Role, and then you were running a campaign and doing a distinctly above average job in my personal
So it was
assessment.
pretty funny. I had this because I'd studied a lot, right? I spent all of Saturday up till the Utah football game, like, just felt like I was cramming for a final. I was nervous. But I had really gotten to the groove that day, and everything sounded so magnificent. And then when I explained the great event, I was like, that sounds so cheesy. Like, just the name, the great event. And in my mind, it was like this, 3 years after this total desolation of the land. But when I explained it, it was like, okay.
There was an event 3 years ago, and now it sucks here.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that wasn't a great name.
And that's the thing, like,
kind of fell flat.
Like I've told you, man, like, you can come up with anything. And ultimately, we get to the table, you're herding cats.
Yeah.
And we will, at times, totally derail you. And the more you DM, the more you'll be able to roll with that. And the more you'll be able to turn that not just into something that's functional, but those become like the big story hooks. Those become like the big events that you end up remembering, that we'll all go, oh man, I remember when we did, A, B, or C. And you're like, I was prepared for that exactly 0. And
see, I think I prepared for so much more chaos that kind of led me to.
Yeah.
Like, because I know how Ashley plays other games.
Yeah.
I kind of figured she would just run around stabbing everybody. So I was ready for her to, like, kill the barkeep.
Yeah, I think she kind of toned down some of her more chaotic urges. And, like, she was, because it's a collaborative experience, we're all working together, really. I mean, like, it can be viewed as a one versus many thing, but that's only during combat. The rest of the game, we're all on a team.
Yeah.
And we should all be working with you to create a story and to help
See, and
you
I want to
flesh out your
unravel
world.
a story, but
And
like when we were walking through the woods and stuff, I didn't want to just be you show up at this town. Like I really was worried about you guys getting bored. I think next time it'll be better.
There's no such like and
if you could roll. Like, honestly, your combat rolls were great. Everything else,
conversationally,
not good.
Except for the one totally awesome. Did I roll a nat 20 on that one intimidation check? I was we're about to rumble. I am going to talk us into a battle that I don't know if we can win. And then I got the 20 on the intimidation. And I was like, oh, eat that shit. It was rad. What did you think? Because that was your first time, like, was that your first time playing D&D, Tyler?
It was my first time playing an actual campaign. I played a thing called Tiny Dungeon at work. It was
like
about
a one-off campaign thing.
Yeah, it was about a 3-hour session that we cut into 3 different lunch periods, and there was a lot of similarities into the way that it was structured, but I liked the idea of the bigger, wider campaign quite a bit more, naturally, of course, because I want more depth in my gaming, but I had a lot of fun. It was nice to be able to be creative and do things on the fly as a player as well. Because my first time playing, I was not only new to the company, but I'm just a naturally introverted and kind of a shy person, so I didn't really speak up and say a whole lot and do a whole lot of what I felt like I wanted to do. But this time I was like, oh yeah, that guy's running. Well, I'm going to shoot him with a crossbow and see if I can hit him in the leg. And I was trying to be more creative and in the mind of the character that I was playing. So, yeah, it gave me a lot of that opportunity. It was fun.
Yeah, so the first curveball was when we rolled for characters, right? And you guys all decided for the most part you want to be evil.
Yeah.
So I had to readjust the story. So now I've had to create this world where whichever main direction you choose, I feel like I'm set up for. That being said, I think I spent a lot of time doing that. Now I've got to focus on the, like the stores.
You big pictured it, and now you got to get granular.
Yeah. But I really, more than anything, I wanted to get one play in, so I kind of knew, okay, this is
absolutely
how it rolls.
Yeah. How different was it from your expectations?
It was quite a bit different. I mean, like, I don't know if I fully understood the time for a play, like how much to plan for.
Well, that's something that we can decide. Like I told you, man.
Well, no,
me and Ashley, there's times that we'd sit down and we'd grind for like 10 hours at a time.
Bad, but I didn't know, like, if I prep in this direction, like how much does it provide? If that makes sense.
Like content, 2 hours play ratio.
Yeah. And then I learned some things like, okay, if I have a really small town, they're probably not going to spend a lot of time there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
if
there's not much to explore, then we won't stick around.
Yeah, I need to have more NPCs walking around. I need to give you guys more points, if that makes sense. And then, like you said, going in between villages, I want to have more, even if it's just animals or whatnot. Like I was trying to do stuff, but I didn't want it to be like, oh, we're just killing bears. But I wanted to keep you guys entertained.
Yeah, and that's like I said, as you play more and as you get more into it, you'll learn like I'll just drop in a couple of goblins here. I'll throw in a bear or a pack of wolves or whatever.
Which I think is important just so you guys can level up instead of like, oh, you've got like these guys that I expect you to fight later, and you're just don't stand a chance.
Yeah, and then with towns, like in D&D, generally in just about any campaign, like the tavern is going to be your hub of the town.
Yeah.
But while you're there, I mean, there could be a random bar fight, and whether we decide to get involved or not could open up a door.
I wonder if someone expected you to try to get involved in a sudden bar fight.
Or as we're walking out of the tavern, we see, someone like some merchant's cart on fire rolling down the street. What do? We ignore it and we just let it burn. Yeah. It's like, all right, well, shit, that's, there's a thread that we could have gone down, but whatever you had planned for that, you could maybe plug it in somewhere else, or some kid could come running up to us. Hey, you guys are wearing shiny armor and have big weapons. Can you help me? Like, I mean, there's 1,000,001 different, little, you put that door in front of us and then it's on us whether or not we walk through it,
Yeah. So I think my prep next time will be a little better. I'm just glad you guys...
No, I'm just glad to be in the game again and not be running it, because I really don't like, that's not the way that I enjoy D&D. I'm super stoked.
So, I mean, now I'm at this point where I have this story and world in my brain, and I don't care like which direction the players take, but it's like, I'm excited to share like this whole world that I've created in my head.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be awesome. And one of the things that, so like my buddy who used to be our DM for a long time, he used to play D&D a lot, like all day, many, many days in a row, because he played while he was in prison. And like in his world, he's got characters that he was running in the joint that have like, they had like 4-month-long campaigns where they were playing every day, and these characters got to max level. And in his world, no matter what your campaign is, that character now exists as like some sort of god or demigod somewhere in that world. Whether you run across it or not, don't know. Doesn't really matter, but you can bet that those characters, like whether it's his or his old Selly or whoever, or his third character that he got to that level, they're all there. That's a thing that he does, is like his world. There's, he'll draw up on a map, he'll draw a new continent for us to be on. But there are certain characters that are always in his world, and there's certain like laws that always govern his reality because of that, and that's something that, like, as long as you enjoy DMing and go further in it, that's a thing that could happen with yours too.
Yeah. See, for me, I think the one big thing that I see that I'm struggling with is the providing crumbs enough that you want to follow without giving everything, if that makes sense. Like, if I don't provide enough, I'll be like, yeah, whatever. But if I provide too much, there's not going to be kind of that mystery to it.
Yeah.
So.
Well.
So Eric Lang will be in the game somewhere? I have a feeling.
Somewhere.
Right on. Well, on Sunday, Kenneth and I were also able to play some more board games, which was quite nice, because I haven't done that in long enough. And I know it's only been like 6 or 7 days, but...
You didn't come out on Friday night.
No, I had stuff going on here at home, but we ended up playing some Parks on Sunday. It went pretty good.
Yeah, that is a very solid game. It was kind of...
How many players? Just two?
Just the two.
Yeah.
We were kind of looking at the clock because it was Sunday evening, and I was like I had a couple of things to do for work before Monday morning, and I was like, well, I don't want to stay too late, and I've got about another hour. And we were kind of, what should we do? Should we do this? Should we do that? And I was like, how about Parks? I've played that once. You should have a pretty good grip on it by now. Let's do it. And we played it. And that game it's really solid.
The more you play it, the more you figure out like the different levels and things that you can do.
I was surprised by how much I liked it the first time that we played, and I was considerably more impressed with the second playthrough and having a better idea of what I was going for and kind of having a strategy idea going into it.
Yeah.
It went. I dug it. Like I'm almost consider like if I see it, I might just pick it up because it is a quick and easy one to throw down, and it's a theme that anyone could get into.
Yeah. And the artwork is hard not to love.
Yeah, everything, like physically, all of the components are great. The art's great. The graphic design is great. Like everything's.
That was another one of those under $50 Kickstarter purchases.
Yeah.
I am just so proud.
Yeah, that one's rad.
So.
Well, and the designer Henry Audubon, actually, he designed that Space Park game that's done by Keymaster, which also published Parks. Now I want to try that as well. And then we also played a game of Sorcerer, the 2 to 4 player game designed by Peter Schultz and published by White Wizard Games. And it had a lot of similar elements to Magic the Gathering in the combat and the creatures, and there was a little bit of take that here and there with the sorcery cards and elements of it that were somewhat frustrating, that reminded me of Magic, but also some of them that were like really cool unlocks in the moment, like, yes, I just did this thing and he's not going to expect this. And it was a really cool game, and the artwork on that one, amazing.
Yeah, I really like that because it's a card game, and you've got like your 3 battlefields, and you create a character by picking, or you create your deck by picking like the character, the domain, and the lineage.
Right. That's a cool element.
Yeah, 2 of those decks have 10 cards, and then one has 20. So you got a 40 card deck. You shuffle them up, and there's I went all in on the Kickstarter, so I honestly don't know what's in the base game versus the expansions, but I've got a shit ton of different options. I've got like 10 different characters, like 8 different lineages, and
it's a really good game.
8 or 10 domains also.
It's been on sale already a number of times. I know it's on Amazon right now for $29. I'm pretty surprised. It's a really solid game.
Yeah,
I was surprised.
For it being a card game like that, I kind of really appreciate the random element of the dice rolls for combat, because it's not just who's got the better hand of cards, because you can have the objectively better guy. I am rolling all 7 of the battle dice against your guy who's rolling 1, and I just whiffed every bit of it. And then they mitigate that with, you can force rerolls whether you're on offense or defense.
Yeah.
So if you're on offense, you can be like, "Ooh, that wasn't enough. I'm going to roll a couple of these blank ones. Sweet, I got more hits." And then defense can go, "Well, I'm going to spend my little tokens," and you're going to re-roll those.
Yeah.
And you can, there's a little bit of back and forth, and then that resource is kind of limited, and you do battle on all 3 battlefields every time. So it's like deciding which one you want to invest your resources in. And our game ended with like a total Hail Mary play.
It was,
I just went, I need 4 critical hits, because the way that the combat works is the attacker assigns critical hits. All other hits are assigned by the defender. So the defender can go, all right, I'm going to, this minion's going to take this hit, and this minion's going to take that hit, and I'm going to do, and the way that you win is by doing damage to the battlefields. Each battlefield can take 12 damage. The first person to destroy 2 battlefields wins. So I was like, all right, I need to get 4 hits on the battlefield.
Well, let's set this up even better. Like it's 8 damage on each side of the battlefield. This is the last battlefield, of course.
Yeah.
And
we both have 1.
We're like we've been going back and forth, and it's like as close as it can be. And he's got 1 more roll left to go.
Yeah, and I'm like, all right, I need to roll. Yeah, and I think at this point we had both spent all of our little tokens, and I had the one. So the first player gets the benefit of like, one time you can flip this token and you re-roll all the dice.
Even if you had good stuff, you have to roll everything.
You have to re-roll everything. So I'm like going, I just need to get 4 critical hits. So
okay,
I can assign them to the land, the battlefield, and win it. Otherwise he's going to assign him to his minions, and it keeps going. And I want to say that you had like 2 more characters that you were going to roll.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, this is my only chance to win this game, because my minions didn't have enough life left that they could have absorbed the damage if he rolled even okay. So I was
another thing I wanted to point out is, even with 7 dice, all 7 dice rolled, the most criticals that either of us had rolled the entire game was 2.
Yeah. So, and I want to say that I was rolling 7 dice.
Mm-hmm.
So I roll the 7, and I'm like, I had like something absurd, like 6 hits, but it was like 1 direct hit or 1 critical, and I was like, that's not going to do it. I'm going to flip my thing, re-roll the whole thing. Rolled the 4, got him. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that. It was such an epic end to that game.
It was cool.
I want to try to play that one on higher player count, because you kind of fight the people next to you. I think we played it 3 or 4, right?
We played it at 3 once, and that was kind of cool. So you've got the 3 different battlefields, but 1 battlefield is between each pair. Okay. So, with the way that we are sitting in this room right now, I would do a totally separate battle with Russ for a battlefield than I would do with you, and you guys would have your own battle that I couldn't, that I'm just have no effect on. And right. I want to say with that, you destroy the battlefield, and then like you put like a little counter on it, and the first person to destroy 2 or 3, whatever, but like they don't go out of play like they do in the 2-player game. That was really fun too, but I want to say that we, like, thinking back on it, we really screwed up on like a good handful of the rules.
Yeah, I remember when we were done kind of looking at it, thinking that.
Well, in another game that we played that, as far as inexpensive games go, with Sorcerer being on sale lately, Gates of Delirium.
Go buy Gates of Delirium. That game is so good. I love it.
It's a brand new game designed by Jordan and Mandy Goddard and published by Renegade Games Studios. And in Gates of Delirium, players have a hand of these the split action cards. One side is a sane side, and the other one is insane. And every round, one player decides whether the start player, they decide whether the round is going to be sane or insane. And then all players have to play that side of their cards. Now, during sane rounds, players are going to search maps and search for maps and lost pages to a secret tome, and you'll also assign investigators to help them on the map. And during insane rounds, players are going to collect these ancient runes and work to build these gates to release the great old ones. And the person to earn the most victory points by the end of the last gate being opened is going to be the winner of the game. But there's so much more to it than just that quick explanation.
So, like, on the very first thing that like really caught my eye about it is, you are an investigator when you are sane, and you are a cultist when you're insane, and you swap between the two. And like on the back of the box, it says something along the lines of like, you're chasing down who's building these gates, but you think you might know who it is. Is it the dreadful truth? Is it you? It's like, oh man, that's such a cool story for such a like just simple card game, you know?
Yeah.
And it does it doesn't come through super well in the game because it gets very much mechanical. You're just kind of doing the thing on the card.
The one thing that I think draws me in personally is the artwork and the way that they incorporated the artwork with the theme. I mean, it just it like I've said before, Silent Hill being my favorite video game series, this very much touched on that Silent Hill feel for me, which makes me want to own this thing soon.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. We just played it before we sat down.
Yeah.
I didn't love the end of the game, but I think that kind of thing would be adjusted with more plays.
Yeah.
It's just one of those games that when it ends, it ends. So I think the more experience you have, you would plan ahead for that kind of, like, you got an extra turn, Tyler, but I don't think it would make that big a difference if everybody, like, if I understood that. So I don't think it's necessarily a flaw. It's just some games, have that kind of everybody gets the same amount of turns.
Yeah, you trigger end game, and then everyone finishes or gets one more action or whatever. And this one, trigger end game, you score it and you're done.
Which makes sense with the gates. I mean, thematically, I totally get why it is that way. And like I said, I don't know if... I think there's some definite benefits to it. Because when some games do that, like everybody gets a turn, you get to drag out the game so that I can get a higher score type of action, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there is. So the monster, the great old ones or whatever they are that you're unleashing through the gates, in the rule book, it tells you to go in ascending order. So the first one is worth 10 points, and then 11, 12, and I think they go up to 15.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it as we were playing, and mostly because I looked down and I was like, I have like 4 incomplete gates. Like I could really push in any direction depending on. So when you get the gates, there's a bank of 4 of them.
Yeah.
And you can pick from those ones. You don't just pick them at random fully, but you don't get to decide what the 4 are, and they are of any of the 5 areas on the map. Or is there 6?
5. Yeah.
5 areas on the map. So there's a version, and there's absolutely people that I'm sure would like what I'm going to call ticket to riding it, and have, one incomplete gate of each type that if things go their way, they could hit that one turn where they see that there's 4 different gates out, and they go, 1 gate, finish, monster, 1 gate, finish, monster, 1 gate, finish, monster. And I see that as a potential thing. I think that it would be fairly easy to combat because the player interaction isn't massive. Like it's hard to derail someone else's strategy.
Yeah, but flipping it to saying could really hurt that if they don't have the little tokens to flip it. Like, oh, you wanted to get these gates? Yeah, no, we're going insane.
But that's really, I mean, there's the area control aspect of it, and the fact that you can like swap someone's character for one of yours, and then there's flipping the sane and insane mid round if you have enough of the desperation tokens.
Yeah.
Other than that, there's not a ton of player interaction. It's very much passive interaction, and there's an area majority element to it. So there's, it's I got my eye on you. I'm gonna drop some more investigators in there and try and get them there before the gate, is used or whatever. But yeah, I could sort of see someone going for that strategy of having a bunch of incomplete gates and just looking for that one big turn where they end up scoring like 90 points. And if someone does that, then they are not invited to my birthday party.
Or game nights for that.
I think it would be one of those, like if we kept playing, right? We're 10 to 20 plays in, that definitely becomes more strategy.
Yeah.
Because we all know how to play and we're trying to.
And I also see that, like I said, I see that being a fairly easy strategy to fight. I also, I do think that, I'm probably going to play it once or twice with my family, and then I am going to enact a house rule of the monsters instead of them being perfectly in ascending order. So I know that, like, if me and you are both close to building a gate, I can let you build that first one, and then I'll build the second one, and I'll get at least 1 more point just off the monster, and then you score the area and stuff too. So what I'm going to do is just shuffle them up, put them face down. The backs of them are all the same, so we won't know.
It makes me wonder if they did that on purpose.
I kind of think they
graphic
did,
design wise.
Yeah, I like. Maybe there's something else in the rule book. And can we talk about this rule book? It's one of the best laid out rule books I've had. Like I'm not great at teaching games, so most of the time I default to sit down, read it out loud, and let's do it, especially if it's a brand new game. And I was able to sit down, read it out loud, and we just were able to play. I mean, with each aspect of the game, if it affects end game scoring, it tells you right there. It's like you collect lost pages and you put them in order. And if you have consecutive pages, you get 4 points. And if you don't have them consecutive, they're worth 2. It's like, oh, cool. And then it moves on to the next topic. And then at the end of the rule book, there's also like end game scoring, and it reminds you of all of that. But that stuff is peppered in, so it's not, at the end, you're not doing that thing that a lot of rule books will do, where you're like going, so I guess I'm supposed to be collecting these lost pages. I don't know, and then at the end of the rule book, you go, oh, because they're worth points.
Yeah.
Wait, which ones are those? And you're flipping back and forth. It just gives you that information as it talks about each item in the game.
Yeah. Well, and on your little player board, it has, hey, these are worth this point.
Yeah, it's got that little additional like player aid, but I just the fact that I was able to read through the rule book and like read it word for word. And I want to say the one time that me or Tyler had a question, it was, and I don't even remember what it was, because it was answered in the very next paragraph.
Yeah,
like
that's
I don't
right.
remember what it was, but I think you went, well, what about this? And I went, I don't know. Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
right there, like the very next thing it talks about.
Another thing about it being, I don't really respond too well to a rule book being read to me, and I don't usually, it doesn't click for me when we start playing until I actually get into the game and the mechanics start to make sense. But this one, it clicked almost instantly. I didn't have a sense of feeling like I was left behind, where a lot of the other times that we've done that, I do. And another thing about it that I thought was really, really good and plays to its strengths is the game says it's 45 minutes. The game is 45 minutes.
It really is. I mean, the three of us playing was what, mate? Was it? Were we an hour even, or were we at the 45-minute mark?
I think we were right about 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's surprisingly solid, and it could only get faster with more plays.
Exactly.
Really,
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it is not to say that if someone likes Ethnos, they're going to love Gates of Delirium, or if they like Gates of Delirium, they don't love Ethnos. But it's very much that gradual step in the sense that the territory control is the same. It's a different type of set collection. You're playing cards that give you things.
Yeah.
Right? You play 2 cards on your turn. Pretty simple. You can set collect those things.
Yeah, and there's multiple different ways of set collection too.
Right.
I mean, you're collecting the map fragments, you're collecting the pages, you're collecting the ancient runes, and the gates are their own set collection too, realistically. Yeah. So you've got like multiple set collection things. You've got a little bit of area control. I see the similarities with Ethnos.
Yeah.
And I see it being just like 1 degree more complicated.
Right.
And it's super satisfying. And the theme and art feels really good too.
Yeah.
And for whatever it's worth, those who didn't like Ethnos the first time around, it may give them the likelihood of trying Ethnos again with a more positive mindset.
I've only played one person that doesn't like Ethnos.
Well, there's a first for everything, isn't there? Well, before we move on from this one, I also wanted to mention that the meeples, every single one of them is cut differently, and that's killer.
And your
nice
little
touch.
Score tracker is a different, like great old one, shaped meeple. It's not like overly complicated. It's not super gaudy, but they stand out and they look really nice. I mean, it's all wood, but
it's cool.
They're really good. On Friday night when you weren't there, I finally got to try out one of Russ's favorites that he's talked up many times, Richard the Lionheart.
How was it?
I didn't really like it.
Okay, moving on.
We'll talk about
No, I'm just kidding.
I figured that would be a good topic on later today.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Yeah, it was fine. I could see potential, but
what else did you guys play?
The other one that we played was Awkward Guests, and I
will be buying that.
Cannot wait to play that game again. That is Clue on steroids.
Yeah, my family will love that one.
It's so good. So that was a Kickstarter that I backed. I want to say it was earlier this year, and I got it a month or 2 ago, and it doesn't look great. I mean, it's like a brown,
though. To me,
like tan
I
box.
love the look of it.
I feel like
I don't.
I feel like once you open it up, and you're looking at like the cards and stuff, I feel like the art has a certain charm to it. But I look at the box and I think the box is ugly.
And that's where I'm at without playing it. It just there's something blah to it.
I think it's supposed to be like it looks like a 1980s game.
It does,
like to me, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and it's God, it's just good. It was so it's a deduction game. You're trying to solve a murder. And in the book,
if you don't like Clue, you won't like it, as we learned from Ashley.
Well, Ashley even was like, she was like, yeah, it was all right. Like she's like, I didn't like Clue growing up, but it wasn't bad. Like she liked that a lot more than Richard Lionheart. So there's that, like it was good enough for a person who didn't like Clue to like it more than the other game that we played that night.
But there's not much going on. Like in reality, there's a ton going on.
There's not, but there's so much.
But it's
at the
like
same
basically,
time.
I'm looking for clues on this and this place.
Yeah.
And people can offer you up those clues.
So like to break it down to the nuts and bolts, you've got a handful or I'm not sure how many scenarios in the book. But you've got what's called the Brilliant Deck System. And the Brilliant Deck System is the core of this game. And it's a set of, if I remember right, 243 cards. And a scenario gives you all the numbers of the cards that you need to put in. I want to say we were around maybe 50, 45, 50 cards in the deck. And the information on these cards relates to the so to solve the murder, you're trying to find out who did it, what weapon they used, and what their motivation was. It's always in the same room, so that part's different from Clue. And you've got 6 different people, each.
But the rooms do relate to different weapons.
The rooms are important, but so you've got 6 different people. Each of them has 3 different motivations. Each of the 3 motivations can have like 3 different categories of supporting evidence. And then there's I don't know, something like 20 weapons, 20 or 30 weapons. I mean, there's a bunch of different weapons and they're grouped into different categories and they have different properties and stuff. And they are scattered in the different rooms in the house. So it's less about what room something happened in and more of, did this person pass through this room so that they could pick up this weapon? And the scenario gives you the exact cards to come to only one conclusion of a person, a motive, and a weapon. There's also an app. So if you're playing out of the book, when you decide you want to guess, you make your guess, you look in the thing, and either you're right or you're wrong.
Like Clue.
And if you're wrong, you're out of the game. Like player elimination, you just lose. With the app, you can put in your guesses on the app, and the like punishment for being wrong is that in the next guessing phase, you don't get to guess. Now, the way that you get the cards for the information is it goes around the table one time. Each person gets a chance to say, hey, I want information on, you pick any combination of 2, person and room. So you can say, I want information on the living room and the bedroom. I want information on these 2 people. I want information on this guy in the living room. And then everyone who has cards that relate to those puts them down, face down in front of them with a little marker for how many points they're worth. The cards are worth 1 to 3 is all I saw. I don't know if there's more in the deck.
But 3 also gave you really
some
good
seriously good information. So they're essentially valued on the amount of information that's given. So someone can put down, 3 1 value cards and a 3 value that have something to do with the 2 topics that you discussed, and you can pick those up if you give them 6 points of whatever information you have in your hand. So essentially you're kind of
cool.
blind trade, like semi-blind trading your way around the table, and then
so nobody else at the table will have any of that information.
Not necessarily, but see, the thing is, like, you can trade to me, and then I could trade to Russ, and then Russ might trade something to you, and then you're like, all right, well, I got the same card again. Like, it happens that they do come back.
That sounds cool.
And I mean, we played on the second to easiest difficulty of something out of the app, and I could see, like, with more plays and getting better and like getting into the higher difficulties, a strategy of like trying to remember, okay, this card came from Tyler. When Tyler needs information, I'm giving him his card back so that he doesn't get more information than me.
So I was willing to trade more 1s, and I think that was a problem. And then I realized you have to discard cards back. And when the deck runs out, you flip over 3 of those cards. The first time we did that, I was like, those 3 that I wasn't willing to share with others could have just, my whole strategy could have gone out the window because they would be open for everybody to see.
Yeah.
There is definite strategy to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not just like, oh, random. Like, Kevin kept one card that pretty much gave him the win. He may not want to admit it, but he totally guessed at the end.
Yeah. He kind of admitted that he wasn't sure of.
Right.
What was it?
He guessed on the weapon.
He guessed on the weapon. Me and you both guessed on the motive, and we both guessed the same as it turned out. And we were wrong.
So, but he had very vital information that he kind of kept the whole game.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
I
think it's see, I was not willing to share those important things, but at the same time, not doing that didn't reciprocate, right?
Yeah,
it
doesn't open up the big money information swaps.
Yeah.
It doesn't. You can't get big unless you pay big.
Yeah.
It's
a good game.
I really like, and we plan on modifying it, but I like that there's no board. There's cards, and then there's a pad of these papers that has a layout of the house, and it's got everyone listed, all the people listed across the top with their potential motives. It's got different routes throughout the house, the weapons that are there, and then all the weapons categorized at the bottom. It's really slick. It's really clean, and you can, you write on it, and you write notes on it, and you can, the cards will have like a thing that's, you can check this box, and this is a thing, or this is not an option, and then there's other ones that there's like kind of a potential for gray area, so you can like make notes and have your own shorthand and stuff. And so we're going to laminate them and then use wet erase markers so that we can just have like a sturdier.
It's a good game.
It was so
really
good.
enjoyed it.
I'm so happy that I backed that one.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And I'm like, it's one of those, because I know that I back a lot of games, and I know that I back a lot of games that no one else in the group necessarily even looks at. And that's definitely one that I'm like, yeah, I was ahead of the curve. You guys should have all jumped on that one, and no one else did,
so,
suckers.
What was the price point on that one to back? Do you remember? It's pretty low.
Yeah, give me a moment.
Because I'm starting to find, while I do, like, I look forward to Ankh quite a bit, I find myself backing off some of these. I think I've talked about this on the show.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of games I've spent under $50 on Kickstarter that are like some of my favorite in my collection. They're just really good, solid games.
Well, I'm finding that every time that I'm on Kickstarter, my eye is jumping to that price point of 40 to 50 at most.
Yeah.
And if, and then I do the, the component comparison to it. Is this physically worth what I'm expecting? And then, obviously, if the game didn't catch my eye in the first place, I'm not getting that far. But, there's a couple of them that are on there right now that I'm eyeballing that I think, I don't know, depending on how much overtime and how much these medical bills get, squashed this next time or two, I might be back in my second game before I even have my first.
Yeah. Well, and
4 awkward guests, I pledged 41 euros.
Yeah,
which is about $46. And that is a rock solid price point for that game.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
And the base pledge, because I got the like awkward secrets supplement book, which I want to say has more scenarios in it, which is kind of immediately pointless with the app. For the regular pledge with just the game and all the unlocked stretch goals was $35. And there's so much that you need.
Seems well worth it. I'm sure people are selling it for what, 70 now somewhere.
I don't know.
Just the way that the market goes, people just get that. Ooh, I've got to have it now, and
I honestly haven't heard a whole lot of buzz about this game. Like, it deserves more than it's getting.
I've seen quite a bit, but
have you?
Yeah. Speaking of these little games on Kickstarter, I'm gonna plug Heroes of Tenefyr. The Second Curse is coming to Kickstarter in February of 2020.
Nice.
Now, the original was only $19. It's a awesome deck building dungeon crawler.
When are you gonna let us play it so we know what we're talking about here too?
Anytime.
Especially when the last time you mentioned this game, the like creators or publishers wanted us to let you reached out to us to let you know that there is an expansion coming. Yeah. You know, I wish there was an expansion. So like a week before they announced
Russ,
that we knew about it.
Fish for expansions for games we want. Maybe there's something special about
let
that.
Us we should play this game.
Like I haven't had anyone play it and not like it. I know Jared loves to break it out. Zach loves to break it out. Like it's a quick setup for what it is. You know, a deck builder, dungeon crawler deck seems like setup's tough. Setup's real quick, and it's fun. It's not easy. It's a good game. I'm excited. It has that. So you know how Gates of Delirium has that like
Sane and Insane.
Yeah. So these cards have monsters on the top. When you beat the monsters, whoever beats the monster gets that card in their deck, and it flips over, and it's a benefit. So that's kind of how the market works.
Yeah.
So
that sounds cool.
Yeah. So February 2020. We'll have to play that before it comes up so you guys can see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, might have to, be a convert and get in on another Kickstarter.
Yeah. I know.
So I got Tapestry to the table again with the wife. That's
nice.
Big.
That's number 2, right? Second play?
Yeah, that's big for her to like be okay to play something other than Wingspan. So, it's so funny. She's like so nervous to say, we want to play Wingspan, or if I say you want to play a game, she like honestly thinks I'm doing her a favor to play Wingspan. So I don't know what delusional world Wingspan has created, but it's awesome. Now I have a goal to get 100 plays in before the end of the year, which won't be hard because I'm almost there.
No, I was going to say, what are you at, like 80?
So
close, I think.
So what did she think of her second play of Tapestry?
She liked it.
Did she like it more than her first play? Because I remember on her first play, she was it sounded like she was a bit lukewarm, willing to try it again.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, it's that same kind of, I'm waiting for that moment like Wingspan, because Wingspan, after the second time, she was like, can we play again? Because at work, I was thinking about this combo and this.
Oh, you're trying to get
so I'm waiting for that. Moment. Yeah. But it was funny when she originally said that, I was like, that you're experiencing right there, that's why I love games.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That like, I'm thinking about what I want to do.
Well, that's awesome. Well, that kind of dovetails into what we want to talk about this week as far as the main topic, and that is the wow factor in gaming. So we've talked about what it is that makes a game a good game a handful of times on the show, and I think that Kenneth put it best when he said that a good game has a wow factor.
Honestly, that's probably the standard by which I personally judge a good game in my mind.
Well, so what elements of a game provide the wow factor?
It can be anything. Really,
it's different for different people.
Sure.
And it's different for different people. It's different for different games. It's whatever makes you go, wow, or whoa, or that big moment, or that moment where all of a sudden you see the matrix code behind it,
right.
the numbers falling down, and you go, I'm going to combo this and this and this and this and this, and I win, and it's crazy. Like and the first time that you open Cthulhu Wars, and you're like, look at all these colors and giant toys. Like, there's so many different things that can do it. I mean, Too Many Bones is a game of, it could easily be described as dice, mouse pads, and poker chips. But they are all so nice that literally opening them and just feeling them, I was like, oh, I love this. I really hope the game doesn't suck. It doesn't. I really enjoy the game. But I was enamored. I was immediately wowed by the components when I very first opened.
Yeah, that's true. I have to agree. I think that it is very subjective to the game and the player individually. Yeah. And one of the things that does it for me is when a game is over, there's still this passionate conversation about the game that just took place or moments from that specific play. And when a game transcends the actual play and continues on into regular conversation or even beyond, that is a big wow factor for me. And another thing that makes me feel like that is when The game's hit the spot for me after playing it, whether it's a couple of hours after playing or the next day or even like a week later. I'll be thinking about how I played and how I could have played differently or how I want to play better next time when I get a chance to play it. And that's the main wow factor for me is how long it lingers.
Yeah, so for me, I've been thinking a lot about this week because it's moments for me, and then the like linger factor. And I was trying to think of this because Richard the Lionheart you guys didn't really like, and I was trying to figure out why I like it so much.
Yeah, me too.
Well, and it is definitely a game that can fall flat in play. Like there's no question. There's not on the surface. There isn't a ton going on. The board kind of looks like Arkham Horror. It has spots with that same kind of arch. And you go to a spot and you can do something and you get cards and you have a hand and you're trying to manipulate that hand to contain the cards that you want. So when you go to I forget the second phase, what it's called, the Reckoning or whatever.
Where
the Crusades.
Crusades.
The Crusades, because you have to discard 2 cards into that. And when you discard 2 cards into it, it changes some tracks.
Yeah, so you're either on the green team or the red
right.
team, and the cards that you put into the Crusades determine whether you're moving the green tracks or the red tracks. And as soon as one of those tracks, whether it be the rounds track or any of the other tracks that can be influenced by those green and red cards, as soon as one of them hits, that triggers endgame.
So I was trying to figure out why, for me, that's I enjoy the moments, and it's a very good game to me. Sitting next to Ashley, I could see that it was nothing for her. She was moving, she was getting cards in her hand that she didn't care about, and she just wanted the game to end, right? And it's a weird game in the sense that the moments, the anxiety and the stress is all built within. Like you can't discuss it to some extent. Because I still experienced, like I had cards in my hand that I had to keep in order for me to win. But so I could have allowed my team to win on the round before we lost. Had I done that, Kevin would have won. So I had to hope that it would last another turn, and then the other team was able to get their track to the end, and we all lost.
See, and I get where that, like, I understand that appeal, and I can see where that, like, I get that. The problem that I have is I felt like on the board, my movement was constantly extremely limited because at one point I literally was boxed into a corner. There was people like you guys were taking up all the spaces around me. You can only move 3 spaces, and you can't land somewhere that someone else is. So it was like, okay, so there are a handful of good spots around me. I can't use any of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and get some money so that maybe there's a spot that's open where I could spend some money and get some good stuff next turn. Or I'm going to go over to this other spot, save my money because there is a fairly tight economy. I'm going to save my money and get something random. So you're limited with what you can do. And I'm fine with limited choices. That's strategic. That can be very satisfying. But you're limited and you follow up that limited possibility. For me, more often than not, it was a random outcome. And so you've got limited choice with random outcome, and those two things don't mix.
Well, no,
so it's not always that. It was situational for me, but I felt like most of the game, my choices were I was limited, and the limitations put on me pushed me towards doing something that had a random outcome, and that felt completely unsatisfying. It's random, I'm fine with that. Limited options, I'm fine with that. Both of those can be great. I don't think they mix well together, and that was what most of that game was for me. By the time that the board opened up and I actually had options, I had already stopped caring to a degree that I was actively helping you guys to win just to end the game.
Yeah. See, and
when we ended up winning, like our team did, but it was because all in one shot, we all went, hey, if we just dump everything into this track, we can do it. So we did that. And my goal there was like, just end it.
Yeah.
I don't care if we win. I just want it to be over.
Yeah. I mean, it's, like I said, I understand it can fall flat. You have to mitigate all the stuff that you talked about by a horse, a boat, all of that kind of stuff.
But all of that comes back to that tight economy. And like,
well, you don't need money to do a lot. Like you literally don't need money to do a lot.
But it seemed like any of the good spaces, there was like some money thing associated with it. You got to pay a couple of coins so that you can pick the cards that you want versus getting the random ones. Or
all the spaces are good. Like I understand what you're saying, but
they're all good.
But part of it too is like I don't only discard the cards that I think are good, right? Like I don't discard to move my track at the right time. I may have to discard a red card, which may help the red team, but it's going to help me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's well, like I understand. Like this is a hit and miss game. I understand a lot of people won't like this game. Like, and I'm not attached to this one like I am some other games.
Yeah, I could see it going well, but in our play, I felt like I was so limited and just like the manipulation of my hand, I couldn't. I felt like I just couldn't do that. Like the things that you've talked about in the game, I was like, I'm not experiencing that at all. Like I felt like I was playing a totally different game from what you've sold me on to try it.
Well, if I'll be honest, that's like a game if you check out of early, like it's a terrible game. Like it's a terrible game.
Yeah.
Because the cards are very plain. You have 6 cards, they all look blah. And if you don't get involved in what the crusades are and try to figure out how to manipulate those bad cards in your hand to get rid of them, like it's just
and
it's a bad game.
And Ashley had the handful of bad cards. I was like I just didn't have a handful of great cards, and it just didn't do anything for me.
But if you discard those bad cards at the right time, it can in one aspect totally jack up your teammates.
Yeah.
Right? Because I needed the green chests. So I couldn't play those necessarily because I was trying to hold on to them because my secret objective. And so when we talk about the wow factor, for me with this game, it's that kind of those moments. And it's weird in the sense when you're playing that game, you can't discuss like, oh, this moment. It's like, I've got to figure this out all within myself, which if you don't play it right, it's just not a good game. And it doesn't appeal to everybody. It's a weird kind of game.
So there you go, Kenneth. You didn't play it right.
See, on the flip side of that, Terraforming Mars, to me, like that game,
see, and I have no wow moments in that. Like nothing. It's like,
obviously that game is just nothing to you. But that game to me, like the very first time I played it, somewhere around probably the second or third round, I was like going, okay, if I spend this resource on this, it will boost up this resource, but I need that other resource for this. It'll boost up this. Which one do I do? Okay, I'm going to go with this one and it'll boost up. And okay, and that actually relates to this other thing. And I saw that like spider web of different options and different strategies and different routes and different ways to manage my resources. And that, because Terraforming Mars is not a good game to look at. Like, don't, it's ugly. But for me, it has that, like, that very internal, very like personal, that wow moment that isn't like, you don't necessarily, it's not a game where you roll a die and you go, I got that perfect roll, and you stand up and you're like, oh my God, I did it. You know, it's a game where you're quietly in your head going, oh, this is amazing. This is so cool. It's clicking and it's all going good, but you kind of don't want to let that on because you don't want people to start like seeing your strategy and start hate drafting the cards in the next round or whatever. Like it's very it's a very personal and internal wow moment. And I could see where Richard Lionheart would have that too.
See, so I've been thinking a lot about this with Terraforming Mars and what's the winter one?
Dead of Winter?
Dead of Winter. Because those are two games that people love that I am very meh on. So we're talking about wow moments, especially Terraforming Mars, because it's highly regarded as one of the best games. And all that stuff you're talking about, like, I don't see it at all. Like, I see the combos, but as you say that, maybe there's just too much. Like, it doesn't feel to me like there's anything. It's decisions. It's like, oh, I can go this way or all of it, and it doesn't matter because it's an hour from now, I'm going to be doing the same thing.
Yeah, like it's not tight enough, like you're not restricted enough.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, restriction breeds creativity. And in a game like Terraforming Mars, there's a lot of ways to be creative with it, and I could see where I don't know, I couldn't think of a way to properly implement any sort of restrictions to push that creativity. But I can see where it doesn't click for you because there aren't those restrictions on it to push you towards creativity.
It's such a weird game for me, and I've mentally battled over why I don't like that game so much. Every time we play it, I'm like, I don't like it. But why? Because it has so much of what I like.
Yeah.
So it's like the opposite of WoW to me. Like Root, I didn't love at first. I don't know if it was their first play or what, but it had that lasting wow, right? It was like, oh, it was okay, but then that night I was like, oh man, what about this? And it grew and it grew and
like, I kind of think that's why like asymmetry in general is like a wow. Yeah. Like that's kind of like an easy to hit wow factor for me, that a lot of the asymmetric games, like for whatever reason, it sticks with you longer than a game like Terraforming Mars. You know, like I have maybe the very first time that I played Terraforming Mars. Afterwards, you know, there was maybe a day or two of me going, "That was great. I should play this again. That was really cool." You know, but I didn't sit there going, "I should have drafted this card, and if I would have done this differently," because there's way too much of that to try and to like get hung up on those moments.
Sure.
But with something like Root or Cthulhu Wars or Chaos in the Old World, any of those games, it's like there are those moments that it's like, I should have, I attacked here and I should have attacked the next base to the right, and because I didn't, it left me open, and then someone else used their ability, and I should have used this ability, and like it stays with you. You know, you think of those strategies, and I love that. Like Root, for me, was an instant, like the first time I played it with a group, because I played it 2-player twice and I played it solo once, and none of that was like, it was fine, you know, except the solo, because I played a bad solo. I didn't like it. But the 2-player games, it was fine. It wasn't doing anything for me. But the first time I played it with a group, I was like, oh, this is where it's at. This is great.
Yeah. So, you know, we're talking about a couple of games that immediately had a wow factor for you, but what are some other ones, and do they still have that draw for you, or is that subsided or been replaced by another game altogether?
Man. So some of my favorite are really wow factor. Like, I love the others, but it has those moments, right? Every game I've played, well, really comes down to the final turns, and not like both players could win right then, but or both teams, I should say, it's really, you get into that and it feels like, well, if I do this, I'm going to win. Like I've sacrificed enough, I've pushed enough, I'm right on the verge of dying, I got to go after this big monster. If I do it, we win. If not, we lose.
To me, the defining moments in the others is when one person is rolling a set of dice and everyone else at the table is going, oh, like, everyone is like going, oh, this is it. Like, you know, and you get that like everyone's leaning in, everyone's breathing heavy, everyone's making a noise, and as soon as the dice hit the table, everyone goes, yeah, or everyone goes, oh no, like, and everyone's super into it.
Yeah.
Those moments in the others, like, that's absolutely the wow factor.
Yeah. The rolling dice is so appealing in some games, and I know some players think it's frustrating because it's chaos, right?
It's just random chance.
You win or lose by the dice roll, but I think it's more of that in the moment, like just enjoying a play as opposed to just making sure you win. And then probably the first board game that I remember really providing me with the wow factor, the love, the like desire to get everything was Evolution. Like that game clicked with me. I love the art. And like, I don't know, whenever I play that, I just, something about like everybody creating a ecosystem, right? If you don't know that game, you're creating animals. I almost said monsters. Animals, they have defenses.
Some of them are monsters, man.
Yeah. But it sounds pretty boring. You play cards, you eat food, but you give animals traits. Those traits provide you protection or a carnivore, and then you eat. It's another one of those games that I know many groups that it falls flat. Like it just doesn't click.
Right.
Because they play where you just put cards down and you get food from the watering hole. It's a boring game. One, it's not a successful game because you're not going to score a lot of points because there's just not going to be enough food. But when you really evolve the ecosystem where you have some carnivores, some herbivores, you have protection so that you have to keep evolving in the game, man, we have a great time when that happens.
I've only played Evolution a handful of times, and I don't remember if it was my first play or my second play, but one of those ones I created like
it was awesome.
A perfect cannibal machine. It was like and I don't remember if it was between two species or if it was all one species. I thought it was just
one bird that kept eating babies and eat them.
It had ability to boost up the population, and then it also had like an ability to like reduce the food that it needed or something like that.
It was like that Rick and Morty episode.
And it was a carnivore, so it was like the bird would essentially it would lay an egg, it would turn around and eat it, and it ended up being a wash, but it was worth points. Like it was just a point generation thing, and it was such a cool like wow moment, because before that, like either, like I said, that was either my first or second play, and I kind of want to say it was my second play. The first play I was like, yeah, this is cool, like this is really neat, this, but it honestly, it didn't, the art wowed me, but the gameplay was solid. I liked it, but when I hit that weird combo that, I mean, no one else at the table had ever seen that going on.
Awesome.
It was like, and I want to say that I was so inexperienced with the game that I think Russ called it out, was like, dude, that's just like a cannibal machine. Like they're just eating their young. That is horrifying and super effective. Like
that's hilarious.
That was the wow moment for me with Evolution. Absolutely was, like I said, not necessarily building that because I built it without realizing it, but when I realized what it was and how organically it got there, and how organically anything can happen in that game, that was absolutely the wow moment for me with Evolution.
See, for that game, it's just this, and it's one that people say they don't like, and I totally get it. But if you play with the right group, and everyone's creating this ecosystem, it's out of the games that I've played a lot of, it relies on everyone so much more than anything else, because I have to get food. If you're taking all the food from the watering hole, I have to become a carnivore. If you're protected from being a carnivore, I have to get food from the watering hole. So it's like, it's an ecosystem, and it's just so good that way. And the expansions that I've got, I mean,
it nails its theme in such a surprising way.
Yeah. And that was one where probably at first like was like, oh my gosh, games are so good. There's like so much to it. And I just wanted to teach everybody, and that's also where I learned that, you know, some people aren't going to like some of the games that I like. And at first I was like really hurt when people didn't like Evolution. Like,
right.
Really sad. It's like, no, you were wrong. You're just wrong. But that's
well,
not
what's
true.
changed?
I just realized that
kidding.
I just realized that it can fall flat. Like if we sat down at the table and we just put tons of food in the watering hole, it's a race to points.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, some people play games that way. And I've realized that while most of my games are on the WoW moments are on moments, very rarely those moments don't provide a win all the time. Like Chaos in the Old World, a lot of those moments are at the end where you just, you know, for us tends to be an argument about what happened when and where. It's still this excitement, right? It's not necessarily about who won. It's like, oh man, I was going to win if this happened, you know. And if games for me don't hold the WoW as much if it's about the win.
Yeah, I try to disregard whatever like wow or excitement. I mean, enjoy it in the moment for sure. You know, like you won, enjoy that.
Right.
But don't let that, if that's the only thing you take away, to me, that's a sign of there's a flaw with the game. I mean, it may or may not be a good game or a bad game, but for me, I go, I'm not sure that game is going to be one that I want to keep going back to. And it has taken some time as a gamer to learn that for me, winning is definitely not the most important thing.
Right.
And the times where I've been really excited by a game and I think back on it and I go, you know, especially like after a second play, and I'm like, why did I like it so much the first time? The second time sucked. Well, it's because I won the first time. Oh, I don't need to play this again.
Like, especially with like asymmetrical, right? Because I never plan on winning those first time. Like,
no, the first
I've got to figure out just the mechanisms.
Yeah,
it's cool if you win, but like some monsters, chaos, the God's War, root, they're all so different. It's like if I win, that's great, but I don't even know how these cats work, so I'm pretty sure they're not going to work, right? Or the lizards, or
it's right. Well, for me, Pandemic was an interesting and amazing concept just right off the bat, since I'd never played or even considered the possibility of a cooperative game in board game terms. I mean, I'd played, 2-player co-ops on the Xbox, and I loved that idea, but I didn't think that it was going to be something that I could incorporate in a tabletop sense. And then, it's one that I don't play very often anymore, but if I'm going to play with a new player, it's one that I want to throw out onto the table, especially with the more competitive types.
Yeah.
Because I want them to see that they can compete with the game, and see how well they do getting their ass kicked by an inanimate object.
Yeah.
Which usually turns out really well, and they want to play it again right then and there. And that's the sign that, the games, I might have you as a new gamer in our group.
That's really good to play with my competitive family members. I try to get them hooked on cooperative to start with.
Yeah. Well, and on that note, what about games that everybody else is clicking? I mean, like Kenneth has talked about with, Richard the Lionheart, it just didn't click with him, and with me, Ethnos right off the bat wasn't, a knockout of the park. King of Tokyo for me was a bit of a flop for me and the family, and I can't explain why that wasn't a hit. It has so many things that I love in games, but it just didn't make it.
Yeah, the first time I played King of Tokyo, I kind of went, "Oh, I get it." Like, and that was like my takeaway. I was like,
"Yeah,
that's neat. It's a neat concept. It's got cool art. It's a cool theme. But I'm fine. Like I've played it once, and
right.
Like I don't ever see myself buying it for sure. I don't see myself like going for it at someone else's house. I probably wouldn't like shut someone down if they wanted to play it.
Sure.
But if they wanted to play it twice in a row, I'd probably have something to say about the second play. You know, like that's about where I'm at with King of whatever.
King of New York is the one that I play, and it's got a little bit more to it. More than just the in and out of the city.
I'm not sure. I may have actually played King of New York. I don't know which one I played, but I mean, giant monsters. I mean, it's smashing a city, and you're playing Yahtzee.
I like playing it with my family, but it's nothing I would pull out on our game night.
Yeah, I honestly, I could see if my 4-year-old niece, you know, in a couple of years, if she gets to where she wants to play games, I could see King of whatever place you feel like being a good one for that age group.
Definitely.
But
at the same time, if I'm going to play Monster Yahtzee, I'm going to reach for Elder Sign every time. But that's also a cooperative game, whereas the other one is competitive.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different game altogether, but it's, you know, similar in the way that it's Monster Yahtzee.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I enjoy King of New York. There's strategy to being in and out. It's King of the Hill with dice.
Yes.
Like, it's a good play. For me, I've learned over the last few years, I can't judge a game by one play. Like, I was terrible at it before. It took me years to give Scythe another play because it was such a bad play.
Yeah.
But I've learned I may love a game in one play and not like it in another. So it's kind of you gotta get in a few plays before you can really, like, you can like a game, but you might be 10 plays in and be like, okay. Like, I'm that way with Root. Like, I loved Root. And some of the reviews I saw, I was like, I don't know if I agree. I don't know. I'd have to look at how many plays I'm in. 8, 9, 10 plays I'm in. Yeah, I kind of agree with some of that stuff now. It's not, there are some things that I don't love about it. I'm still willing to play it all the time. It's on my shelf. It's great, but there are some samey type stuff that it gets. But
yeah,
that's not a bad thing. Like, I don't like the quote unquote saying samey because chess is the same. It's still a great game.
Right? Yeah.
Have you ever found yourself in the situation where you feel the wow, but you don't realize that it's because it's a mechanic and not like a specific to this game mechanic, but like a category? I can think of 2 times that I've done this. One, Champions of Midgard was the first worker placement game that I played, and I was like, oh, I have to own this right now. Very happy with that choice. Like, I still really dig Champions of Midgard, and it's still like a very solid worker placement among my pretty extensive collection of worker placement games that I have now. And I really like what it is. I really, really like worker placement. And like, looking back on it, I think Champions was kind of a perfect game for that because it has some other stuff going on. And I'm not sure that my first if Lords of Waterdeep was my first worker placement, or even like a Feast for Rodin or something like that.
Right.
I don't know that I would have had the wow factor and gone for more of them. But on the flip side of that, my first deck builder was Marvel Legendary, which also solid game. I like it. I never play it. Like, I never even almost play it. It's a game that I have a few, 2, 3 expansions in Shrink, and another. I mean, so when you build the deck, you use different heroes and you use different villains and stuff. I've probably played with a total of like a quarter of either category of what I have, you know, and a lot of that is by way of open up one of the new expansions, play with whatever's in there, even though I haven't played with everything in the base box and I haven't played with everything in the big expansion. And ultimately, like, I realized that I like Marvel, I like deck builders, and again, you know, it's a good game, but I feel like I have better deck builders in my collection now.
Right.
And I have just, it's easier. I have games that are easier to set up, that aren't scattered across 30 some odd boxes or whatever, you know, with the endless supply of expansions. Have you ever had the wow factor either betray you, or you realize that you weren't wowed by what you thought you were when you expand your horizons.
Yeah, I picked up the Lord of the Rings dice building game because of my extreme interest in Dice Masters. And after trying to play through that thing probably half a dozen times, I realized that this is this even a game? It was a highly disappointing thing, and that says more about the game itself. And it just didn't, it wasn't a flushed out concept. I mean, it was a great idea and it's a wonderful IP, but it just wasn't. It's not a finished game. They just haven't finished that game, and it feels like it gets close, but then it's over, or is it over? It was really confusing, and I think that and maybe it was just the first couple of times that I tried to play through it, but that was one that I felt a little disappointed by. And same goes for the Lord of the Rings deck building games. I tried to play through those a couple of times, and it just, I love Lord of the Rings. I'm a Tolkien fan, but they just fell flat for me.
So the LCG or the deck builder?
What the deck builders?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I bought all of them. I had The Hobbit and all 3 of the Lord of the Rings games as well. And
I thought I heard
you can mash them all together, and it can be great and fun. And again, I've heard wonderful things about it, but I just didn't love it. And another thing, as far as like deck builders and more of it's like a deck mashing game, is Smash Up. I heard so many cool things, and I just got sucked into the hype of, this sounds amazing. I want to do this. It sounds super duper fun. And then it wasn't. I just didn't like it at all. Every time I played.
Smash Up was a weird one for me because like the first couple of times playing Smash Up, I really, really liked it. And then I honestly want to say over the course of like one play, it was like the negative side of that aha moment when you see the matrix code behind the game and you're like, oh, this sucks. I mean, not that it sucks, because Smash Up is fine,
Sure.
And I've actually, there was a Kickstarter that ended up not funding a while ago that I was really thinking about backing, but looking at it, I was like, that's like Smash Up Plus.
See, I see Sorcerer is Smash Up Plus. Sorcerer.
That's fair. I mean,
not in a negative way at all. Like a better version.
You said that, and my knee-jerk reaction was to argue with you, and then I thought for that extra half second, and I was like, no, it is. You really are. You're mashing together, instead of it being a bunch of different races, you're mashing together different character aspects, and then you're going to the different battlefields, and you're ultimately, like, yes, you're battling
racing
one another, but you're battling for the battlefield, which you're doing with, like,
Yeah, exactly.
See, I don't want to...
I yield. I concede.
I don't want to...
You nailed it. All right, end of episode. Good episode, guys.
I don't want to offend any Smash Up fans out there, because I think it is a good game, but it's very much, to me, kind of that party game in the sense that it's like, you can get your non-gamer friends to play it if you're having a dinner party or something. Like, I don't like it. It's one of the very few games that I sold because it just never saw the table. I think a lot of fans out there, and they, like, I like Munchkin. People don't like Munchkin. Same kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, I get it. So...
Yeah, I think that both Munchkin and Smash Up, in my opinion, have a similar problem for me, and that is, the more that I have played those games, the less I've liked them.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
And it's like, there's just something about it that mechanically they get to where they feel tedious.
Yeah, well, there's no depth to it, really.
I will absolutely say that I would play Munchkin over Smash Up. Like, regardless, like that would be my choice.
Yeah, I think I'm there too.
I don't think I'd throw down on a hard no to someone wanting to play either of them. But again, I'm not gonna play it a second time in a row.
Definitely not.
I'm probably not gonna play it a second time in a month. But I'd be the occasionals. If someone was like, "Hey, I really want to play Smash Up," I'd be like, "Yeah, sure, whatever, let's do it."
Yeah, I have games mechanics that I love, and when there's a game that does something a little different in a good way, like the wow factor is there automatic. Abomination, perfect example.
Yeah.
Theme mixed in with awesome worker placement. And then for me, I do not like the theme of trains at all. But my favorite deck builder is trains. I got the expansion today, so I'm very excited. But it's a simple deck builder with a board. You're building tracks, but it has this mechanic of where it adds terrible cards into your deck continually. So you have to manage your deck. It's not just like I get to build a deck. I have to manage my deck.
Right.
And I love that about a deck builder because I also love decks or card games that you manage it. Like Bloodborne, where you have a limited number of cards and I have to manage the good cards in that deck and what I want to do with it. So to mix those two together with a deck builder that I have to manage the turds that I'm going to keep getting into it, or like that just adds to it for me.
There's turds in the game?
Oh yeah. There's a lot of turds.
Yeah, I almost feel that way with Terraforming Mars. Like I'm not by default. I'm not like super into sci-fi.
Yeah.
I'm not super into like Mars as a theme. But the first time that I played Terraforming Mars, I was like, "Hey, this is rad!" Like it clicked for me, and I really enjoyed it. And going into it, I couldn't care less about the theme.
One of these plays, it may click for me, but I don't know.
And it may not. Like, not every game is for every person.
I used to feel really guilty that it wouldn't. Now
well,
it's like,
you're
whatever.
Still guilty for not liking it.
Well, I can be, but it doesn't frustrate me. Like, I'd be like, why don't I like this game? Why don't I like this game? It has everything I like. Why don't I like it?
Yeah.
And now it's like,
it doesn't keep you up at night anymore.
See,
no.
I'm very happy that I learned to accept that because I feel like I'd have lost sleep over my total blah over Blood Rage. Like, just didn't care.
I think you would if you played it again, though, with new players.
Yeah, we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
I think that a different group maybe.
We need to get Inish to the table.
Yes.
So that
especially because I'm going to buy it and I'm not willing to play that until Ken plays it.
Nice.
Because it'll automatically default him out.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
It will. It will. I promise you, if Ken played with experienced players, he would not like it.
But experience is literally one round and you're an experienced player. You look at all the cards, you learn what pretty much every single one of them does, -1.
But it's hard to have a long-term plan just seeing the cards once.
But again, I don't think that it has the same problems that Blood Rage does. There's 3 different decks that you're going through with Blood Rage.
But all of those cards are the same thing, better. Every Blood Rage card in every round is the same thing, better.
And Inish, they're just the same thing.
Understood. The one thing that Inish has, though, which no drafting game has that's really cool, is if I decide to change my
the card that you're drafting,
like I can keep those cards, like I can put them back in and draft new. That mechanic right there is a benefit.
I think it's cool too. Well, what are a couple games that have provided a wow factor for you guys recently? Something either new or something that you've played that's new to you?
I mentioned the Abomination. I think that was all of us, right?
Yep. For me, Abomination's one that hits every wow factor for me as well.
As morbid as it sounds, like the game itself was good, but I love turn of the century history, medical practices, that kind of stuff. So why some people are like, oh, that's just a grotesque theme. Like, to me, understand, I know it's Frankenstein, but so much of what they did was somewhat historically factual for doctors.
Yeah.
Right? Like
historically factual may not be the right word, but it's absolutely realistic.
Right.
Like, it's very much, it feels like a very grounded game.
Yeah.
Especially when you factor in that you're building a Frankenstein monster.
In the Mary Shelley world, it's fictionally factual as far as what she, wrote into that whole story and that
so,
theme there. And
so that was a very wow.
It's one that I can't stop thinking about too since our first play, and to the point where I went and after selling some stuff at TimCon, I bought a copy for myself, and I've been dying to get it to the table again, and I've probably bored or irritated people at work by talking about how much I love the damn game.
Yeah. The God's War for me after a play was awesome. Probably the opposite for you.
No, let me.
But
actually,
I don't know what it was about it because we did have the Chaos player, and it is different. It is reskin of Chaos or Cthulhu Wars in some ways, but the Chaos player is not quite a one versus many, but to some aspects,
pretty damn close.
It is close because
everybody else needs to work together against that one player.
And I definitely think another play like, oh, we just don't let him have all those buildings. Yeah, and it's totally nerfed, right? But it was, I don't know, that same kind of Cthulhu Wars. Very much like, ooh, I love the way it works. And once you play it, it's like, oh, this is reasonably simple, right? I always think that, and then I try to teach a game like that to my non-gamer friends, and they're like, what's going on here? But it's reasonably simple, and it just, I really dug the theme.
Well, I think you'd be happy to hear that it actually hit a couple of the wow factors for me, as far as I walked away from the damn game, and I'm like, okay, what could I have done better?
That sounds like Root to me.
Now I want to try it again because I want to like it more than I did the first time. There were, like I said, it was the play that, there was elements of the play that left me going,
yeah, and I can see that.
Shit. But at the same time, I'm going, I feel like that was partly me. Now, what can I do to keep it from being so much that? So it actually has been one that
wow
hit
factor
me,
always, right?
Hit me in the list.
Like you were talking about, Ken, it's like...
With Root as well, it had a similar thing for me.
Yeah.
I can't wait to play Vast.
Dude, yes.
Yeah. And then the other one that I was really excited to play, like, went out, bought it, day it was released, was the God of War card game. And I was excited about it. But I was worried a little bit that it would be kind of, it's
an IP
cooperative card game, and I was worried that it might be super easy. You do these quests and then a monster. Not super easy, but, like...
With stuff like that, I worry it's going to be like a reskin of something else.
Yeah.
Just with the IP.
Played it. One, it's hard in hell. Like, oh my gosh. But two, it's different. It's so different. You lay out this picture with 8 cards, and that's your quest, and you move around and you do stuff in a column. You play cards, and then the monsters play cards and trigger. And then those cards that were your kind of the negative then become the market, and you take one and add it to your deck. So it's that one really provided a wow factor. So
that's cool.
Like, I was excited for it, but kind of more of a wow factor than I anticipated.
Well, even that the Gates of Delirium, that's one that just hit a couple of wow factors for me. Since Kenneth and I played it on Sunday, I've been, oh man, I want to get this thing back to the table.
Yeah.
I love it that it's quick, it's easy, it's pretty straightforward as far as what you can do and what you're going to do with the game, but it left me going, all right, I want to do it better. I want to do it again. It's another one that scratched enough of those itches. Yeah. So
Dice City was one I picked up in a trade that hit a good, like, I have games that I get really excited to play with my family and other gamer groups than our just like hardcore gamer group, I'd call it. I don't know if that's the right term or, and it's very simple dice rolling by these buildings, but man, there's a good level of strategy in it. I got an expansion for it, and I'm really excited. It kind of felt like my family loves Tiny Towns, my daughter's favorite game.
Mm-hmm.
This was like, felt in a way Tiny Towns with dice. And it was kind of cool in that way.
The most recent wow factor game for me is Gates of Delirium, because that's just the most recent new game that I've played.
Yeah.
The problem with like that question for me is that, like I said, that's kind of how I judge a good game. So that's a thing that I'm always looking for. Like,
yeah,
I could almost go through the list of games that I've ever played and sort them into wow factor or no wow factor, and it would almost be a perfect line of games that I like versus don't, and it really is as simple as that. And a lot of the time, it's looking for something, Satanimals is a very simple game, and the wow factor is the goofy theme.
Yeah.
Parks is.
Oh, that was a wow factor for me.
Parks is a pretty game.
Yeah.
And there's, after 2 plays, I saw way more strategy and way more depth of gameplay in that second play. Raccoon Tycoon is a fairly recent one that was I did not expect it to be as cool as it is.
Yeah.
And that game is just
agree.
super cool,
Carnival of Monsters.
Carnival of Monsters is one that
yes
that I was thinking of, and then there's like, I fully expected to come away from the play of Betrayal going, whatever. And then I played it and I was like, that's really cool. Like that,
especially after that play, I was surprised
why
you liked it so much. That's kind of how they all go.
I don't know. I felt like I honestly, I feel like that was like a perfect first play.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I would have been terribly impressed with that scenario on my 3rd or 5th play.
Yeah.
But like on my first play, and especially where the way that it worked out, I happened to be the guy that it was like, okay, I don't need to do much, but I can kind of mess around. And it was a fairly light, play, but it was good, and I expected to like it less than how much I ended up liking it. Same thing with Dead of Winter. I expected it to fall a little bit flatter, and it just was fun. Yeah. There wasn't any there was a couple of really funny almost I would almost call them like game adjacent moments.
Right.
Like it wasn't a function of the game so much as
the players.
We were playing the game and Zach was hilarious on accident, and
it bled into the Betrayal game.
Yeah. And that's like that's a wow factor also,
Sure.
And I have a hard time like Richard the Lionheart, no wow factor. I don't have a whole lot of great things to say about it. Meh. Like, I can see potential in it. Court of the Dead didn't wow me. Court of the Dead I actually found to be kind of disappointing because it looks so cool, but playing it just fell flat for me.
I enjoyed that
feel
one.
The wow factor. I could see potential.
I don't know if I had the wow factor there, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I could see some potential. I wouldn't be opposed to trying it again, but I don't see me ever asking to play it again.
Yeah. See, that's one I want to give again because the first round was so rough.
Yeah.
Like, which month of it?
Probably the second.
I'm just kidding.
I think it was the second.
The entire 3rd season of it was pretty rough.
Yeah.
Well, another one for me was Anachrony. The first time that I played through it, it left such a good impression on me that, and pretty much every time since, and I've played it more solo than with a group, which I find it's got interesting elements to it in solo, but that group effect it's been so different every time that I've played it that's another thing that stands out to me, is that it's got a lot of variability in how you can play that game and how it can play out overall based on the people at the table with you. And, I still love the solo mode and I'll play it as often as I can with, time allowing, but the fact that in a group I can just bounce ideas off of others as well as play against their different mindsets, that's something that stands out in the terms of wow factor for me.
One of the games that surprised me the most in the last, I don't know, 6 months, I'd have to look, 6 months with the wow factor was Teotihuacan. Was excited to play it. Absolutely fell in love with the first play. Didn't know if it would provide the same like moment in the second one because like I remembered it as this just amazing thing. And then the second time I played it, it was there again. And I don't know what it is. Like it provided.
I love when that happens. Like I've never played that game, but I love when you're sitting down for that second play and you're like, is this going to live up to what I remember? And then it does. God, that might be the best feeling as a hobby gamer.
I agree. Gates just did that.
Yeah.
It nailed it. It might have been more fun the second time.
Yeah. So Teotihuacan like opened my eyes to be more open to that kind of that Euro. Like I had some Euros in my collection and stuff, but
sure.
I don't know, something about that play. I don't know, like I really got into the theme. I know it's not much of a theme, but like I was like building a temple and oh man, I can't believe I don't own that game yet.
Well, they have another new expansion coming out soon. Oh.
I will own that game in the coming weeks.
I'm kind of surprised that you don't own that yet with how often you talk about it.
This is where it's like, I go to buy a game, new shiny, The God's War. Ooh, look at this pretty. I'll just buy that. Oh, shoot, I wanted that.
But like we've talked about before, I don't think I've seen Teotihuacan on the shelves anywhere that I've been.
And that's one
it doesn't
that,
last
like,
long there.
You put it out on the table. I remember when Zach had it out on the table and we were learning, I was like, can we just get this? Like, this looks so much. Like, it is very dense looking.
It is.
And it's not near as much as it is. It's kind of like
Sidereal
Confluence. The first time we played that, it was like, oh my gosh, can this end? We were not even through the rules, but then at the end there was that wow factor. But like, that's terrible.
That's a game that it's like it's hard to convey that wow factor. Like, I mean, I know that we've told you about it, Tyler, and
I'm anxiously awaiting my first play.
I feel like we've conveyed the excitement.
I hope it's not a letdown based on all
that's
this
what I've
build
learned.
up.
I don't like telling people anything about a wow factor anymore because then they don't like it.
Well, the thing is, like, with Sidereal Confluence, you go, you just trade everything, and it's amazing. And it's like, what do you mean? I mean, like, same thing kind of, at least with Awkward Guests, you can get a little bit more granular and explain some of, like, the cool concepts. But it's like, you look at someone, you're like, dude, it's like Clue on steroids. And they go, okay. And you go, no, it's like Clue, but on steroids, man. They're like, yeah, I heard you the first time. You're like, no, you're not getting it.
Yeah.
It's Clue, classic Clue. If you're in Europe, it's Cluedo on steroids. And, you know, people look at you like you're insane. But if you kind of break down the brilliant deck system and stuff like that, you can get gamers to kind of respond to that a little bit better. With Sidereal Confluence, it's like you're just trading everything.
It's like Pit on steroids.
You've got different abilities, and it's like, what? Well, what? So like you just trade whatever you want. You're like, yeah, I know, right? And they're like, well, I don't
see. Well, it doesn't.
And then
compute
it looks like
because
shit.
You're
like it looks like shit on the table. It's just ugly for now.
It's
going to be so beautiful.
It also doesn't compute because we were all like, so what can I trade? Like,
yeah, I know. You're looking for those limitations.
You're looking at the rules like, well, can I trade that? No, literally, you can trade anything. Oh, you want to trade my ship? You want to trade my ability to trade the ship? Yeah, like, you can trade anything.
Yeah.
So it's hard to be like, yeah, you can trade anything. And then, you know, they're looking for all the loopholes. Like,
yeah.
So what exactly can I trade?
I could definitely see a game of, like, the only way that I could see a game of Sidereal Confluence falling apart is a game of, like, quiet or less big personalities.
Yeah.
Like a table full of contemplative people just trying to get the best trade quietly. Oh man, that would be terrible. Like I don't ever want to play Sidereal Confluence in a library.
If there was a table full
of Barnes and Noble.
If you had a
I don't give a
full
shit.
of
I'll yell
people,
at Barnes and Noble.
if you had a
They're
table,
not doing a public service.
you had a table full of
It's just a
people that were
business.
only paying attention to what, like, this equals this.
Yeah.
Like, nothing would happen because you have to be willing to go out on a limb and be like, well, I'll trade you this.
Yeah.
Even though this might not be equal to this at this time.
It sounds like that baseline is going to fluctuate based on the players at the table more than anything.
And that's one of the in a lot of ways one of the most unreliable wow factors is when it depends on the players. It's cool when you can identify that. Like I could absolutely see Dead of Winter being a game that with the wrong group is just a dud, but with the right group is amazing.
Yeah.
Betrayal fits in that.
Sure.
It seems that Scythe fit in that for us. You know, I don't know that necessarily it grew its very own wow factor on your second playthrough, but you clearly had
it grew that wow. This isn't a turd.
Yeah, like
like
you clearly
this is
had like
not
night
a
and day
terrible game,
experiences, and it was based on the player group, and that can a good group is a wow factor in and of itself. And honestly, that's I've never even considered it before, but that could be exactly why I look for the wow factor, is because I have a good group, and we often, even if the game isn't amazing, we often get to the wow factor because we have a good group and it's fun. And there's a reason that most of the time, if I'm talking about games, then it really doesn't matter what game I'm talking about how much I like it and how much I enjoyed it.
Sure.
Or, you know, there's even games that I'll be like, yeah, you know, it's not great, but it's fun. Like I can objectively recognize that this is not like a well-designed good game, but I had a blast with it. And a big part of that is that I'm fortunate enough to have a good group that we enjoy playing games with each other.
Definitely.
And we can bring out the wow factor, even if maybe it's not in the components or the rule book or the mechanics. We can sometimes bring that wow
It's in the moment with the group.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for listening. Please rate and review the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or whatever podcatcher that you use. If you've got a suggestion for an episode or a Talk 5, send it to thelategamepodcast@gmail.com or send us a message on our website or social media. You can find us at thelategamepodcast.com, at The Late Game Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, as well as on YouTube. Thanks again for staying up with The Late Game.
I'm trying to hold back because there is a shitload of them. Like you could dump a ton of money in D&D.
Yeah. It's like any other hobby.